a good vintage Meyer mouthpiece, but your stupid parents didn't leave you a trust fund, I've got a solution. Hi, and welcome to the Saxophone Academy. I'm Dr. Wally Wallace, and if you're interested in saxophone masterclasses and product reviews, please do subscribe and be sure to hit the like button, and I'll enter you on a waiting list for a one-bedroom apartment in New York. Now, speaking of New York, today we're looking at the GS New York mouthpiece, a copy of a very specific Meyer mouthpiece. First things first, why are there so many Meyer mouthpieces? J.J. Babbitt, the company that owns the current Meyer design, well, they own the Meyer brand, and they have many variations upon this mouthpiece at varying price points, but there's also many other companies making homages, clones, replicas, and Meyer-inspired mouthpieces. Why is it so popular? Well, frankly, it's a design that just works. And a lot of our heroes in the mid-20th century that defined the jazz alto sound, Cannonball Adderley, Phil Woods, and a lot of my other West Coast cool school heroes, they all played Meyers. It's a versatile, powerful mouthpiece that gets the job done, but allowing you enough room to have your own sound. So it's not surprising that it's still incredibly popular today. So now, shall we dive into a deep history of the Meyer mouthpiece, the Meyer brothers, and the evolution of the stamping and engraving on the table and the side of the shank? And no, I don't care about any of that. That borderlines on trivia to me. I don't care so much about the history of equipment so much as the history of jazz, which for me is listening to records. I find it interesting, and there's people that dive into it in great detail. If you enjoy that, I'll put some links down below where you can check out more information. But we're going to do this from a consumer standpoint. You got about $200. Is this a good mouthpiece to buy? I first met Brian when I was buying a vintage Tonalin Brillhart mouthpiece, and I was really rather surprised by his collection of mouthpieces. I thought maybe he'd have a Tonalin, or maybe two. No, he had a drawer of vintage Brillhart Tonalins. So he has a big collection of mouthpieces, and this is a copy of his favorite New York Meyer from his collection of New York Meyers. So this is a recreation of his favorite New York Meyer mouthpiece using the power of science. Rather than guessing and taking rough measurements, he actually uses a micro CT scan to create an exact replica of his favorite Meyer mouthpiece from his collection, and then it's printed in high resolution using a dental resin, which is 100% biocompatible and safe in your mouth. And if it's not safe, then we've got something to talk about with our dentists. For the look and feel, it feels pretty similar to hard rubber in density, weighs roughly the same. It does feel a little bit different in the mouth. It feels kind of like a tooth, which is because it's made from the same thing they make false teeth with. So it looks like Tonalin, but it's biocompatible dental resin, so I call it Toothalin. Brian has yet to adopt that terminology. The one I've got here today is the 7-facing, which is my favorite, and we're going to be comparing it to a 7-facing Meyer in just a little bit. These are all hand-faced by Brian. He painstakingly applies the facing to each of them. There's several options. You can check them out in the link below. You will notice that there's not really any rough print lines. It's a very high resolution, down to 1/1000th of an inch, and the hand-facing is really well done. The table, the reels are just glass smooth. He does a really nice job with these. So what I look for in a Meyer mouthpiece, or any mouthpiece, but I guess specifically what I really like about the Meyer design, is the flexibility. It has enough power that you can absolutely lead a big band section, but you can also play much more comfortable and more laid back, a jazz combo setting, and in a pinch with the right reed, you could play a pops concert with a local symphony. It should have a lot of different colors you can draw out of this mouthpiece with just changing out the reed. And I found this does this very well. So I changed reeds, the strength of the reed for this next sound clip, not to a different strength, but to a different strength reed in the same box. So still a 2.5, just one of these stronger 2.5s in the same box could get a very different sound color out of the mouthpiece. So now let's do a back-to-back unprocessed comparison between the GS New York and the stock Babbitt Meyer. Now, you may think, why this particular Meyer? Well, because it's more or less ubiquitous. You can buy this on music shelves all over the world. And if this isn't the best Meyer option, then I don't think Babbitt should simply call this the Meyer. So we're going to play these back-to-back, and I want you to let me know in the comments, what sound differences do you hear between these two mouthpieces? And I'm going to use this as a baseline to compare it to the Wally and some other mouthpieces I'll be reviewing in the coming weeks as we search for the best non-Meyer Meyer. So for $200, you can experience a great vintage mouthpiece without breaking the bank and your spouse filing for divorce. But I guess if you bought a really good vintage Meyer, they couldn't afford a good divorce attorney, so it's kind of a wash. Either way, I think it's a very good value for money, very fun mouthpiece to play. Now, on its face, saying a mouthpiece is fun to play seems like it doesn't tell you very much, and I understand that. But I think experienced saxophonists kind of know what that means. And there's certain mouthpieces that are just a pleasure to play. They give back to you as you play. Does that make... Let me know if that makes any sense in the comments below. I think some of my colleagues will agree they know what that feeling is. This mouthpiece certainly gives you that feeling. I'll put a link below. You can check out more, check out the pictures, and learn more about the GS line of mouthpieces. All right, I will be back next week with some educational content to get you practicing. And you have been practicing, haven't you, Johnny? No? Go practice.